Our next principle of art is unity. This is our last principle of art. So, unity is about all of the elements of the artwork being in visual harmony. So, everything fitting together and working together. So, unity happens when all the parts of an artwork fit and make sense, and when nothing distracts from the whole. So, all our aspects of the artwork work together to create visual harmony. To create a unified composition, we got to consider the visual weight and making sure that things are balanced. Another way to create it is by using overlapping and making sure that are creating depth in our artwork, and then also using rhythm to add variety and interest. So with Unity, we don't want everything to just look the same. We want to make sure that there's also variety and interest, that we're still exploring the artwork and things are interesting to look at, but we also want everything to fit and to make sense. So this painting here by Faith Ringgold, this is one of my favorite paintings. This is called Sunflower Quilting Bee at Arles, and it's actually a painting. It's on canvas. It's acrylic on canvas, but it's been included in a quilt here. So we have a fabric border that has been added, and Faith Ringgold kind of created this new medium of creating quilts that told stories and usually painting on them as well. So this is kind of part of her style. And here we clearly have a lot of parts coming together. We have lots and lots of sunflowers all coming together to to create this garden here. And then we also have sunflowers printed on this quilt that all of these women are working on. And these are famous Black women from history. So you might recognize a few faces. We have Harriet Tubman here in the middle and Rosa Parks next to her, and lots of other really important figures from Black history. So they're all coming together, these different characters from history, all in the same place. And then over here, we have Vincent Van Gogh, and might recognize him because he's got red hair and that very famous hat. And we know that Vincent Van Gogh loved painting sunflowers. So the fact that he is here surrounded by sunflowers basically fits. It makes sense that these things are here, even though they might seem strange, and we are definitely creating this kind of imaginary world where all of these people are existing at the same time and working on a quilt together. So we have unity working not just in the concept of these people coming together in visual harmony, but we also have, of course, all the sunflowers coming together visually. We can see that they are realistically overlapping, which definitely helps with them fitting together and making sense. But there's also unity in these buildings back here where we have them, a lot of repeated shapes and repeated lines. And again, with unity, we want to include rhythm with this because we want repetition, but we also want variety. So we don't want to just see the same thing consistent across the whole artwork. We want to see different things working together and fitting together. So that's where we have variety in the colors of these buildings, even though a lot of the shapes and the sizes are the same. And we definitely do have a sense of pattern here as well, where we've got these flowers kind of spread out and very consistent across here. So a good example of pattern versus rhythm as well, with the rhythm of the sunflowers in the background being a little bit more varied. One last thing to add with this artwork is there is a lot of text on here. There's small text at the top and the bottom, and there is actually the names of each of these women along the side of this quilt. But the text that runs along here, I want to read for you. It says, "An international symbol of our dedication to change the world." So that's just kind of giving an homage to these amazing women who did change the world in lots of different ways, and just coming together as a symbol of their dedication to doing that. The second piece of work of art that I want to talk about for unity is this Jacob Lawrence painting. So Jacob Lawrence was an African American artist. He worked during the Harlem Renaissance era, um, which Faith Ringgold also worked in the Harlem Renaissance, and they were contemporaries for a large part of their lives. So Jacob Lawrence is probably one of the most famous African American artists, and he was one of the first really nationally recognized African American artists, which is pretty significant during the 1960s and the civil rights era. So here we have this incredible painting called The Library. So the library is a wonderful example of unity because we can see that there are lots of parts here coming together, but they all seem to make sense, they seem to fit, and they seem to fit in lots of different ways. So first of all, we can see this is unified by the colors that are used here. So we have repeated colors with the blue spread out amongst the whole composition with the red and the yellow. So those 3 colors are our primary colors, and that's intentional, so we recognize those colors, right away from color theory, but we also have this faint green that is, dispersed around the artwork. We also have black, and we have brown. So the fact that these colors are distributed evenly across the artwork definitely helps to unify this work of art. We're not just seeing all one thing on one side, it's not out of balance. This is also a good example of all over balance with the way that those colors are placed. And then we also have unity because of the use of overlapping. So Jacob Lawrence focuses mainly on flat colors and flat figures and using flat color and shape. So we see some value here that definitely adds a little bit of depth with some of the details, but we're not seeing a huge amount of depth. Like the linear perspective is not there, and uh, and most of the shapes are flat. So the way that Jacob Lawrence creates the space that actually works as a space is he uses overlapping. So we know that when we place one thing in front of another thing, we create a sense of depth. And doing that in a space also creates unity. So this is why this is a great example of unity because we can clearly see there's lots of ways that everything is overlapping. We have this figure in front of these figures at this table. We have this chair in front of this table, and then we have this long table in front of everything else with these figures sitting at the table exploring different books. This one exploring books on African art. So lots going on here, lots to explore, and a really wonderful way of bringing all of these parts together in visual harmony.